What's up everyone, I'm Eldritch Master Donkey and I'm so very much in love with World of Warships. Holy crap, is this game sweet or what? Anyway, when you start out this game, you get a crappy little starter ship, pretty much like in World of Tanks. They are technically cruisers, but they don't really do what other cruisers in their lines do. The ships you get are the Erie for the US forces, and the Katori for the Japanese forces. The Erie is a light cruiser with only 9,900 hit points, and its guns are smaller than those of the Katori. It is a little bit more maneuverable, but not really all that much, so in the end you should always stay a bit further back when you're in an Erie, just so you don't get blown up right away. The Katori, on the other hand, is a medium cruiser with almost double the hit points of the Erie. It also has more armor, and it has slightly bigger guns. It is a little bit slower, but all in all, it's pretty much stronger than the Erie in almost every respect. Which is really weird, because none of the Japanese ships that come after the Katori work like the Katori. They are all a lot faster, have torpedoes, and generally have weaker guns than the Americans. However, no matter how many hit points you have, this is still going to wreck your ship. So don't let yourself get hit by a bunch of torpedoes like I did there. After Tier 1, you have the choice of going for either destroyers or cruisers. If you want to play battleships or aircraft carriers, you will have to play cruisers for 2 tiers. Cruisers are pretty much the middle of the road when it comes to World of Warships. They have really good DPM, but their alpha damage is a lot lower than that of a battleship. What they lack in killing ships in one shot, they make up for in doing a ton of damage over time. They also have very good anti-aircraft capability, including a special ability that lets them focus fire against aircraft for a while. So having cruisers with you against aircraft is really good because they provide cover for you. Cruisers have very average speed and maneuverability compared to other ship types. They are maneuverable enough, but not especially maneuverable, which can also be a problem when battleships start focusing you. US cruisers specifically have slightly better guns than Japanese cruisers do. They do a little bit more damage, and especially they have higher DPM. They also have much better anti-aircraft capability much earlier, because the Japanese cruisers only get really good anti-aircraft capability at about tier 9 and 10. However, all Japanese cruisers come with torpedoes, and that makes them really strong. It kind of makes them like a mixture between a cruiser and a destroyer, and to make up for this difference, Japanese cruisers also tend to be a little bit more maneuverable. That doesn't necessarily mean they're faster, but it means that their turning circle is a lot narrower, and they're able to just outmaneuver their opponents. However, there is one thing that all Japanese ships share, and that is that Japanese ships have a terrible turret traverse time. It takes them forever to turn their turrets from left to right. So keep this in mind, because otherwise you might find yourself in a situation where you're firing to your left side, and then somebody pops up on your right, and you will not be able to shoot at him. So you have to think ahead a lot more in Japanese cruisers. Unlike the name suggests, destroyers are not Conan the Barbarian. They are more that little rogue guy that followed him around, because destroyers are quick, they're maneuverable. I mean, just look at me dodge these torpedoes right here. Yeah, that's right. And they need that speed and maneuverability to stay alive, because if you ever get hit in a destroyer, that's pretty much good game for you. However, it's not that hard. You just have to try and learn to, instead of focusing on firing at people, to move and maneuver and, drive left and right. Destroyers are also very stealthy, which comes in handy because if you mix it with the smokescreen ability that all destroyers get, it lets you sneak up on enemy ships and really unload with your torpedoes. Oh yeah, by the way, all destroyers have torpedoes, and their torpedoes are amazing. You can do so much damage with your torpedoes. you will have people raging against you and saying, "Oh my god, torpedoes are so overpowered." And after they rage, you just give them a happy face and then you go kill all their little friends. Another thing that destroyers are really good at is capping. If you play a domination map, it makes sense to speed ahead of the pack at the beginning of the game and capture one of the points before withdrawing and letting the cruisers and battleships go past. American destroyers have better maneuverability and better anti-aircraft capabilities, and they also have better guns, which I don't really consider to be an advantage, because guns on destroyers are absolute garbage. They're not really there for dealing damage. They are there for crippling your enemy, or trying to cripple your enemy. In my opinion, you should never fire AP ammunition whatsoever. You should always just load high explosive, fire at their decks, and hope to just destroy something important. Your damage comes from your torpedoes. At the higher tiers, you can start maybe thinking about using your guns a bit more, but in general, your torpedoes is going to be where it's at. Japanese destroyers are faster, and they have bigger, stronger, and longer-reaching torpedoes. They're also slightly stealthier than the American destroyers, which, in my opinion, just makes them better at being destroyers. I don't know, maybe I haven't played the American destroyers enough, but so far I really do like the Japanese destroyers better. The biggest disadvantage of Japanese destroyers is that they have a very, very slow turret traverse, just like all the other Japanese ships. However, as I just said, guns are pretty much useless on destroyers, or at least not that good, so who cares really? It's not that big a deal. You have the better torpedoes, and torpedoes are the strong suit of destroyers. So I'm totally okay with having poopy guns, but having much better torpedoes. Maybe that's just me, maybe I need to play the game more. Battleships are the biggest and nastiest ships in the game with the biggest and nastiest guns in the game. They can and will one-shot opponents some of the time. However, this capability comes at severe cost. Their DPM is really, really low in comparison to cruisers, which means that sometimes if you don't get those critical hits, if you don't get those citadel hits, if you don't get those penetrations on your AP rounds, then you're just not going to do enough damage to kill them before they kill you. You have to watch out for that. Battleships do have amazing armor and survivability. Their armor is really thick, they have a lot of hit points, and they can heal their hit points over time, which is something that none of the other ships can do. However, they are very slow and predictable, meaning that it is very easy for torpedo bombers and destroyers to sneak up on them and take them out. Also, one thing I want to leave you with is, if you play the Kawachi, don't get discouraged by it. It's kind of a terrible ship and probably one of the worst ships in the game. It does get better after the Kawachi, I promise. Aircraft carriers work completely differently from the other ship types in the game. It's more like playing a strategy game as opposed to a shooter. You order your ship around, you do this by pressing 1 and then clicking where you want your ship to go. You can still control the speed and the turning rate with WASD, Q and E, and you should move your ship around. You shouldn't always stay in the same spot, because then it becomes easier for destroyers to realize where you are. And then 2, 3, 4, and 5 control your aircraft squadrons. There are fighters, which are good at destroying enemy fighters and enemy torpedo bombers and bombers, or just generally for scouting. There are torpedo bombers, which can really do a lot of damage to enemy ships, as you can see right here. And then there are bombers, which also do a lot of damage to enemy ships, but in a different way. They don't cause flooding, they are not as... well, they don't have to travel toward the target, you just drop them straight on top of the enemy ship, but they also do less damage, and instead of flooding, they cause fires and, can knock out... It's basically like dropping a bunch of HE rounds on a ship. Bombers in general do a lot less damage as well. They're not really there for causing amazing amounts of damage. That's what torpedo bombers are for. Bombers are more for disrupting and crippling enemy ships. Because let's face it, torpedoes really only deal damage. You also provide something really important to your fleet, which is a very, very strong air cover. No matter how good your cruiser's air defense is, there's really no one who can kill planes as well as you can. As you can see here, my loadout is 2 fighters and 1 torpedo bombers in this game, and I just rip apart the enemy air power, which causes our team to win in the end, because nobody has to worry about the enemy torpedo bombers. So remember that it's not all about torpedo bombers, it's also about the fighters. Well, that's a quick rundown on how the game works and how the different ship types work, and I can only say you should really try this game out as soon as it goes into open beta, or if you can get your hands on a closed beta key, you should do that and just give it a chance, because it's really neat. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you should consider clicking that like button or subscribing to the channel, because I will be doing a lot more of these World of Warships videos, and that'll be the easiest way for you to see when and how. In the meantime, if you have any feedback on my sound or my video quality or other things I could do better or that I have to work on, please leave a comment and tell me about it, because I really do want to get better at this. I think my sound has already improved and my video quality, and I'm working on all the other bits and bobs around it, like the thumbnails and a logo and intros and outros, but for now, at least I feel my videos are getting better. I hope you agree. If you don't, tell me about it. Or if you do, hey, you can also tell me about it, because who doesn't like positive criticism? Alright, but that's it. I'm Eldritch, Master Donkey, and you're awesome.